He was one of Glasgow's most notorious gangsters, said to have made a £30 million fortune from a life of crime. Most of the proceeds were laundered through legitimate enterprises such as ice cream vans, taxis, pubs, security firms, and properties both at home and abroad. During a criminal career spanning more than 35 years, Tam McGraw was feared and hated in equal measure. He maintained an iron grip at the top of the city's underworld while appearing immune from the law. McGraw was given the nickname the Licensee. To some, this was a reference to the Caravel bar that he and his wife Margaret ran on Hall Hill Road in Ballannock for more than a decade. To others, it hinted at the idea he had a licence from police to commit crime in exchange for information. Despite being linked to major crimes, McGraw rarely stood trial, and when he did, charges were often dropped. On the rare occasions he was convicted, he usually served only a few months. Over his adult life, he was connected with the murders of a family of 6, the attempted murder of a police officer, the deaths of 2 underworld figures, and a multi-million-pound drug smuggling operation. Yet nothing ever stuck. Police always denied any deal, but McGraw certainly seemed to lead a charmed life.
I knew about Tam McGraw before I met him. I knew he was a grass before I met him. And I knew I had to be careful with saying anything about him.
In his 2011 memoir, Gangsters, Killers and Me, retired detective Jerry Gallaher criticised the leniency McGraw had enjoyed. On one occasion, when Gallaher tried to arrest him, McGraw complained directly to his superior, branding Gallaher a pit bull. Gallaher later wrote that it was obvious McGraw had been given too much leeway. He grew up in Glasgow's East End and became involved in petty crime, spending time in young offenders institutions as a teenager. In 1971, he married his childhood sweetheart Margaret at the Glasgow Register office. The couple briefly moved to London, where they worked on buses and in factories. It was there that McGraw became skilled at busting alarms and breaking safes. He also won thousands in compensation after falling into a vat of chemicals at an electroplating plant. Back in Glasgow, he set up the notorious Ballannock team, who carried out a series of post office robberies across Scotland. Using McGraw's skills to disable alarms, the gang also raided warehouses and off-sale shops. In 1978, while fleeing a robbery, McGraw crashed into a police barricade and almost killed an officer. He was charged with attempted murder and robbery, but the charges were mysteriously dropped. Many believe this was when McGraw first turned informant. In the early 1980s, McGraw disbanded the Ballannock team and moved into the lucrative ice cream van trade. In Glasgow's sprawling estates, vans could legally earn hundreds of pounds a week, selling food, cigarettes and sweets, but also provided cover for selling stolen goods and drugs like heroin. McGraw sought to expand his business, using violence and intimidation to secure the most profitable routes. When 18-year-old Andrew Doyle refused to give in, the consequences were horrific. In February 1984, shots were fired through Andrew's van windscreen. Weeks later, a mystery man set fire to the family's top floor flat. Of the 9 people inside, only 3 survived. The 6 victims included Andrew, his father James, his sister Christina and her baby son, and his 2 brothers. 2 men, Thomas T.C. Campbell and Joe Steele, were convicted of the Doyle murders, but after a 20-year campaign, their convictions were overturned in 2004.
I spent 18 years for a crime I never done, and a horrendous crime at that. And even I've had people saying, well, if you knew who done it, why did you know? Tell them who done it, whatever. It doesn't work that way. I was brought up with a family of villains, all through my uncles, cousins, everybody. And it's the way I was built. You don't tell tales, you don't grass, you deal with your own thing, and that's what we've done.
Many still believe McGraw ordered the attacks.
It was Tam McGraw, that was the man who was behind the fire. He was in remanded was at the time, when we all got remanded, and he came up one day and tell us he was going to PF release.
By the mid-1980s, McGraw had moved into the heroin trade alongside Arthur Thompson Jr., son of the crime godfather Arthur Thompson Sr. When Thompson Jr. was jailed in 1985, McGraw's influence grew. In 1991, Arthur Jr. was shot dead while on weekend leave from prison. A month later, two of his suspected killers, Joe Hanlon and Bobby Glover, were found dead in a car outside the Cottage Bar in Shettleston, the same day as Arthur Jr.'s funeral. Rumours claimed McGraw knew more than he let on, and that their bodies had even been kept in his Caravel bar before being dumped back in the car. In 1992, Paul Ferris stood trial for Arthur Jr.'s murder, but was found not guilty. When Arthur Thompson Sr. died the following year, McGraw was left as Glasgow's most powerful underworld figure. By the late 1990s, he had expanded into legitimate businesses, taxis, security firms, and property, amassing millions. Yet, in 1998, he was charged with smuggling £220,000 worth of cannabis in a specially adapted bus. After a 55-day trial, he walked free on a not proven verdict. By the early 2000s, McGraw was a wealthy businessman with properties in Scotland, Ireland and Spain, but violence still followed him. In 2002, he survived a stabbing while wearing a bulletproof vest. Several of his closest associates, including Trevor Lawson, Gordon Ross and Billy McPhee, were killed within a year. Around this time, McGraw separated from Margaret. Despite predictions that he would be assassinated, McGraw died in 2007 at age 55 from a heart attack at home in Mount Vernon. At his death, McGraw officially had just £621 in the bank, a life insurance policy worth £33,500 and the house valued at £400,000 not in his name. Many wondered what became of his fortune. Around 300 mourners attended his funeral. 3 months later, his brother Francis was murdered at home. In 2009, Margaret remarried, but later divorced, and in 2012 published Gangster's Wife, an empire built on cards. The following year, their son William died from drug and alcohol intoxication. Margaret herself died in 2018, leaving behind a multi-million-pound estate. Tam McGraw remains one of Glasgow's most enigmatic underworld figures. Was he a ruthless gangster? A police informer? A shrewd businessman? Or all three? Despite his reputation, he avoided the media spotlight for most of his life, emerging only in the late 1990s. To some he was untouchable, to others simply lucky. Even in death, the true story of the licensee, myth, man, or both, remains clouded in mystery.